Steve Gillmor and his merry Gillmor Gang. Coming to you from, I was in New York this morning, and I don't really know where I am right now. On my extreme right, through no fault of his own, is Doc Searls. Welcome, Doc.
Hi.
I've put as your title the Clue Train Manifesto because you have a new copy of it that's being distributed, correct?
Well, it's not that new at this point. It's a year or so old, but it's the 10th anniversary edition. I probably have one down here somewhere.
Well, the way time moves these days for me, it feels like it was yesterday.
Yeah, I know. It's like that for me too.
The chuckle is to my extreme left, and that's Kevin Marks.
Hello there. Nice to see you again.
Likewise. Scoble is omnipresent, so we'll have to go with him. Welcome, Robert.
Hey, what's up?
You look like you are coming to us from the prison courtyard.
Yeah, it reminds me of prison, all right. This is the old PodTech offices over here. I'm in the courtyard of USVP's venture capital office on Sand Hill Road.
Social prison.
Social prison, yeah.
And joining us from New York, where I saw him yesterday, and again today, is the throat-challenged John Borthwick.
Hi, Steve. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you and somewhat hear you. Okay, so I know what we're going to talk about today, but before that, is there anything else that's interesting to anybody? Maybe Doc, than the iPad 2?
Well, everything's interesting to me, so
Okay.
You guys go first.
Well, I want to hear what you think about the iPad 2.
It doesn't make me regret having an iPad 1. 3G with 64 gigs. I haven't become accustomed to having a camera. I don't have the camera on it, but it's so useful in general. I don't have a sense that I miss having the two. I think it's very clever to have all those different colored cases. It's exactly what everybody expected, pretty much, except for the swagware that went along with it.
The swagware.
Yeah, you can get it with a pink case or a blue case or a red case or whatever else it is. Apple does a wonderful job of having the fewest number of SKUs with lots of accessories from themselves and third parties. So it's a customarily clever move on their part.
Well, I think they killed the third-party case market.
Oh, sure, but they never mind doing that. They can make more.
They'll completely killed it. I think there'll be ones that interact with it, but it'll take good.
What, with magnets?
There'll be competing ones.
I don't think so.
They probably enable a bigger.
They'll put magnets. Yeah.
They'll be out 3 months from now.
There'll be people who want to protect the back of it as well.
Really? Okay, well, you heard it here first. John, what do you think about the iPad 2?
What do I think about the iPad 2? I can't wait to try one. I've been finding. I mean, my biggest criticism of the iPad 1 has been the weight. So it's a tad faster, and it's quite a bit faster, and it's lighter. So that's good. I'm excited. I mean, I think it feels more like a incremental upgrade. It's pretty much what people expected. 2 cameras. I think that it would be nice to do a couple of other things. I think that would have been nice. And I'm excited about the HD stuff. So
you mean throwing it up on the HD screen?
Throwing it up on the HD screen. That's I think that's intriguing. And so all good. I'm excited.
And Robert, you and I had the pleasure of actually handling those things a couple of weeks ago.
Yep.
So, do you think? I didn't think that the weight made much difference to me.
I have to hold one for an hour to see the difference there, but I certainly like the thinness. I took pictures of it next to my old iPad, and you can definitely see there's a sizable difference.
Yeah, I'm talking more about the the fact that it's 2 ounces lighter is interesting, but it isn't as dramatic as some of the other things about it. At least not to me.
Yeah, to me, I want the camera for Skyping. I mean, I would use it for this. I would walk around the courtyard holding a tablet rather than doing a laptop, which is hard to move around.
Okay, so anything else about the iPad 2 before we move on to something interesting?
Faster, faster, thinner, lighter.
Does it do 1080p video when you squirt it up in the big screen?
That
Not
I
really.
don't know.
No, what it does
the
is
camera's only 720p, but
I mean, like if you want to, if it has that thing where you can communicate with your big screen and use it as a
AirPlay.
it has AirPlay, but the plug-in thing just blows up the screen and does mirroring, but it does mirror it the other way around as well.
Okay, so it's So actually, here's the thing. I don't have the iPad with me, but I want to show this. This here is Al Jazeera. This is on the iPhone, and our iPad is our Al Jazeera viewer now. That's primarily what we use it for.
Mm-hmm.
And the interesting thing to me about that is there is exactly one source of streaming video that matters on stuff that matters in the world right now, and it's Al Jazeera, and it's not on cable.
Yep.
And in the U.S., it's in cable in more civilized countries, but it's not on cable here. But it's on.
Well, it depends on how you look at it. It might be the cable is not particularly civilized anymore.
Well, that may be the case. The interesting thing for me is that I think this is a model for something, and I think Al Jazeera deserves credit for, in some ways, breaking open the cable market to something. I guess basically the continued breakup of the cable market. You need cable even less now when the one streaming channel that's worth watching isn't on there, but is on your iPad, and it's on your phone, and it's on other things like that.
Robert?
I totally agree. I was sitting in the World Economic Forum when I started hearing about the Egypt stuff. I started watching my tweet stream, which is going down my screen right now. Somebody mentioned Al Jazeera. I clicked on that link, and I was watching Al Jazeera, and that's what I watched for the next week. And CNN is just totally incompetent. It's it's the destruction of an American network. It's fascinating to watch.
Well, John, didn't you used to work for the same company as CNN?
Not for Al Jazeera. For I used to be over at Time Warner,
right.
But as as Doc says, I mean, I think that the over the top aspect of this is truly disruptive, and I think that we'll look back. Doc wrote a blog post, I think, when this started breaking, and I think the transition and the change that's taking place with Al Jazeera moving over the top is one piece of it. I think there's another piece here, which is, and Hillary Clinton's comment yesterday points to this, is that they're doing real news.
Yep.
It's a far more authentic stream of news.
Whose comment?
Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, that Al Jazeera is doing real news.
Hillary Clinton made the comment that the broadcast networks, and she didn't even bother mentioning cable, but God, it's in the U.S. Are not doing real news anymore.
No. Al Jazeera is actually invested in hiring a lot of journalists. We were talking about that here at USVP, and about some of the other news changes that are happening. Huffington Post is coming on very strong in this new world. And I think the stream, I don't want to turn the camera on because my screen's dark, but I'm watching Twitter all the time now, and Twitter tells me what to pay attention to. I have, 300, 400 news brands like, Al Jazeera, CNN, Economist, Wall Street Journal, New York Times, on and on and on, all coming into Twitter now, and they tell me what to pay attention to, along with the social people who are, people like us who are watching the world, and that's how it goes now. And I think more and more people are getting into that world.
Kevin?
I think that's true. It's been one of the things that's going on at the moment is huge amount of lobbying in Congress over television spectrum. That's going on this week, and you've seen that. And the broadcasters saying, but we're really efficient using spectrum to send all this stuff to everyone. And it's really strange to see them saying that in this context when they're not. A, they're not. B, actually most people are using cable to get stuff now instead. And see the using the spectrum for something like Wi-Fi is so much more efficient. It's hard to put it into words. So there's this sort of very bizarre presumption that is still the way to do things, that's sort of lurking around everywhere.
I was talking with David Sanborn yesterday about, of course, the Beatles, and his comment was that he didn't think that there was going to be another Beatles because the concept of this kind of broadcast, that music no longer has the cachet of being a dominant platform for information. And I disagreed with him, but one part of what he's saying I think is true, which is that what we are able to do, as this show is an example of, is that we are able to narrowcast to a very specific audience, and we can signal them over Twitter, as Robert suggests, and we can establish a feedback loop, which is a much more sharply structured and focused communications network. And so what we're seeing here, I think, is a million channels blooming, in the sense that they are now becoming the quality of the signal that they're producing is compelling. And that's why we see Al Jazeera, which has this massive impact in the rest of the world, being reduced to a sort of strategic channel here. And I think that the impact, this show is only about the iPad 2, in my opinion. So I will get back to it. But,
we can make it about the iPad 3.
I was over at VMware today meeting with some vice presidents, and they said it's all about the iPad. So they're coming out with an iPad next week.
I don't think anybody is real. I think there are a lot of people who realize this, but I'm going to say it anyway. Office is dead. Have you noticed? Yeah, and the reason that
Office is still dead.
Yes, and the reason that Office is still dead is because Windows is now being killed by iOS. Windows is under incredible assault at this point.
Yeah,
people are, obviously Google and the web. That strategy is becoming the sort of number 2 global repository, Android and so on and so forth. But when you're looking for information interchange, you don't think about Windows, and they have basically blocked themselves. I guess I want to ask John Borthwick, do you think that that Microsoft can actually adopt iOS the way that they did, Office on the Mac?
Can Microsoft adopt iOS?
Yeah, they were a premier supplier of the Office suite to the Mac, and dominated that.
Yeah, I don't think it goes. I think that a couple of different thoughts. The first is that I think it's remarkable how quickly this has happened. If you look at HP and if you look at the tablets and the boxes that they're shipping, 10 years ago, their contracts and the power of Microsoft and Intel would never have permitted them to ship with the diversity of OSs or non-OSs that they're doing today. So I think the shift is significant. When you say Microsoft installing iOS, are you saying through virtualization?
I'm not asking the question. I'm just positing what I think has happened, which is that Microsoft has maneuvered themselves into a completely untenable position. There's no way that they will be allowed to enter the iOS platform if they chose to do it, which they apparently have not realized how significant this is. As the television networks switch over to the tablet, they're going to switch over to, sure, Microsoft can fast follow at some point with their own tablet, but the flow of social media, they're years behind in social media. The flow of
right.
of this kind of real-time communications and on video, they're years behind. I mean, I think Windows is becoming a third-rate, third world company.
Michael asked, why would MS want to support iOS? Today's Microsoft probably doesn't. If iOS had happened in the 90s, they certainly would have jumped on, both so that they could learn from the platform and participate in the bleeding edge, which is what they did with the Macintosh. If you go back to the 80s, remember, Bill Gates invested a lot of money in Mac apps when everybody said the Mac is stupid and lame, right? And then he comes out with I remember when I first started getting into computers in the late 80s, I had Microsoft Office. Then when I got Windows, I got Microsoft Office, and it looked pretty close to the Mac. And that was a brilliant strategy move. It killed all the people who, like Borland, God, who was the database people?
Ashton Tate.
WordPerfect, Ashton Tate, all those guys went away because they made the wrong bet. They didn't bet on the platform that was going to win.
Yeah, some of them bet on OS2 and
WordPerfect.
Yeah, exactly. And
yeah, well, they bet mostly on DOS.
Yeah.
I mean, Borland, didn't believe that Windows was going to be a big deal. And go back to when I was in college. I remember talking to all the geeks at San Jose State in the computer science department, and they were all making fun of me for having a computer with with Windows and a mouse. They said, "Why do you need that? And real computer users use a command line." And I hear the same shit about iOS right now. It's like, why do you need a touch tablet? It doesn't do anything. It doesn't run Office. It's like,
right.
You are so out of it.
The things that were most amazing about the iPad 2 launch were the apps that Apple built. I mean, GarageBand, as John Gruber points out in a really excellent column, you can't do that on the Mac. You just can't do what you can do. I mean, what's happening is that Apple is backporting OS 10 to the iOS platform. That's why
the other way around,
Windows is dead. No, not the other way around. They're going to take, I mean, we will see next year, we will see, or maybe even this year, we'll see, a generation of iMacs that will support touch, or some sort of touch panel that's a bolt-on.
I'm going to go further than that. It doesn't matter anymore. I was at VMware this morning, seeing what they're doing. They're able to run any OS inside your iPad, and on Android as well. They have Android running inside Android, and think about what that means. You can switch between your work phone system and your home phone system, or your work iPad system and your home iPad system. You can have two OSs running virtually on one of these devices. It has more than enough horsepower to run that kind of thing. So it doesn't matter. Microsoft will still get some license revenue because at work you're going to still have a Windows box on a server somewhere that you're going to call up and run PowerPoint if that's what you
Microsoft
run.
Will continue to be around, just like mainframes are continuing to be around. But as to how people are using this in their businesses and in their personal lives, it's already vastly more viral than any of the predictions were about tablet purchases. I mean, they're expecting 50 million purchases of tablets this year. I think that just based on this holy trinity of software and hardware and iTunes. Pardon the expression, Doc. I know, but the fact.
What expression?
Well, the iTunes.
I don't care.
I know, but it's all on tape. We can go back and look at it.
Yeah, you're still using tape. Wow.
I think I'm
it's on
using
film.
tape. I also think this is
film, not
1981.
tape.
Yeah.
It's actually there's an interesting thing to me here, though, which is that there's several. One is that I think Apple doesn't. Maybe John would know. Doesn't Apple's market cap more than double Microsoft's at this point, or maybe Microsoft and Oracle put together, or something crazy like that? Their revenues are through the roof. They've got $70 billion in cash. Their stores are the biggest grossing establishments inside any mall that they occupy. I've been told that their revenues outstrip even a Nordstrom in a particular mall. It's not just they can't do anything wrong. If you think, I mean, I don't know what percentage of new computers sold are Apples, but it's actually getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And all the rest of the guys running only Windows are splitting up the rest, and they must be getting killed. I mean, that's an awful business to be in right now, the Windows clone business. And it's like being in the Windows Phone business, which is like the dumbest thing that Nokia has ever done, but maybe the only thing they could have done. It's an interesting thing to watch the collapse of Microsoft while we're watching the almost absolute ascendance of Apple. But it's still a tree that doesn't grow to the sky. I mean, what happens? At what point do they start to crack and fall over? I'm just wondering. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's not just.
That's what I'm wondering. That's why I'm using Windows as the metaphor.
Yeah.
I mean, would we have thought that Windows would be in danger of anything?
Yes.
Well,
yes, some of us.
You know, if you predict something long enough,
I
Steve,
was using my open source Office client just the other day. Not.
Yeah. Well, you're entitled.
I don't think that any of us credibly thought that Windows would be in economic danger, and I do think they are now. I think that iOS is threatening to break out of the niche of early adopters.
And Steve, it's not just iOS. iOS was the one that showed the entire industry that they don't need Windows anymore. When I sat in HP's launch, and at the last minute they said, "Oh yeah, by the way, we're going to put our web OS on other devices other than tablets," that was a huge shift point for them. Imagine you would have told me 10 years ago that HP would announce a major product line that didn't have Windows running on it. It just would have been amazing to me. And Steve Jobs is the one that made that happen. He go back to VMware. They said they told me they're doing studies of enterprise behavior and people who work inside big companies, and they're seeing iPad adoption skyrocketing. Everywhere. He says you go to an average meeting now in an average company, you see 40, 50% iPads in some of the meetings. Not in every meeting, but he said you're seeing adoption of iPads that's just astounding, and gotta be freaking Microsoft out. And then he said, well, let's take that another year. Over the next year, Apple's going to sell. The analysts are saying 40 million iPads. They sold 15 million in the first 9 months it was out. So 40 isn't out of the, isn't unreachable by any sense of the imagination. They could sell even more, maybe. They're planning on selling, I think, 15 million in the first quarter, something like that. It's crazy. Then add on Android. They said Android will get adoption in enterprises, and that's why they're working on both. Their first thing is going to come out with iPad because that's way ahead. But take Android next year, and then does HP get any traction? Does RIM get any traction? I don't know, but it doesn't matter. No. The slate that Apple has shown the world has totally freed us of Windows. That's really profound.
Here's another angle on what Apple's doing. They're turning the PC industry, in fact, the entire entertainment, office device, all those industries at once into the giant mobile phone industry. It isn't so much that Windows is losing, and even OS X in some ways is losing.
It's being
Linux.
Taken over by
Linux
iOS.
on the desktop is losing. Linux on the handheld, which is Android, is doing fine as an alternative to Apple. But what's happening with here's what happens in the phone industry. You turn over everything every 2 years. You have this device for a couple of years. Who was the original iPhone anymore? Who even has the 3G or the 3GS? Everybody's using. They're upgraded to this.
My daughter does because she. had her iPhone 4 stolen.
I think we were generous a little bit there.
But the thing is that the billing system, the way apps are sold, the way all goods are sold, the music
20
industry is absorbed by it.
20 million credit cards Jobs announced.
200.
200 million, sorry.
200 million accounts.
200 million credit cards that they have through iTunes.
Yeah, it's amazing, and that's they're just absorbing all these different industries, but I think the model that they're on is the reformed phone industry, the phone industry that they are creating, the one that they invented when they got together with AT&T and got AT&T to do what they told them to do. And now that's feeding back up, as you said, Steve, into the computer industry, where it's all going into the cloud. You know, we're coping here right now with iCal and contacts being absorbed into the cloud with MobileMe and losing essentially everything we had before. It's kind of a screwy thing that they're doing, but we don't have much choice. If we're inside that system, we have to do it. You know, or at least the family does.
Well, it used to be that we were, trapped inside Windows, and I guess what you're saying.
We're just as trapped inside this other thing. It's just it's a high class hotel. It's very fancy. But I took like 4 or 5 plane trips this last week, and there were probably 10 or 15 iPads out when you walk up and down the aisles of the airplane, including like half the people in first and business class. At the United Red Carpet Club, there were a bunch of iPads out. At the meetings I was at, people had their iPads out. These are business people, as Robert was saying. It's too easy to use.
80% of Fortune 500 has adopted the iPad.
Yeah,
in one form or another.
It's okay to do that now, and the only thing holding on to Windows is Exchange primarily. And then I was talking to somebody from Google who says, "Well, we're taking care of that too." So I'm not sure what their grip is after that.
Yeah, I think it's I think
to some extent it's still some document format stuff, but that is being eroded. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the thing that the iPad 2, among other things, puts the lie to is the notion that this is only a consumption device. Just take a look at iMovie and GarageBand, and forget about those quote niches and that's for play as opposed to serious business. Take those, the sort of canvas, pardon the expression, of the accelerometer, the gyroscope, the touch screen, and what they've done with GarageBand, for example, is that they've created an app that's velocity sensitive without there being any velocity sensitive glass involved.
Yeah, that's very clever.
It not only is it clever, but this is the new platform that will be written to, and Google is much more of a fast follower than I think people realize. As far as if you remember what happened with the Nexus 1 when it first came out, it had some differences in terms of the gestures that you used, and then they sort of rolled in an update, which basically was what the attorneys felt that they could get away with. And I think that was around the time that Schmidt and had to leave the board because it became clear that they weren't exactly friendly in this area. But this is really a single platform. I'm convinced of it. I don't see it. I see a healthy competition, but not in terms of the overall invention that Jobs has put together.
Clive B in the chat room made an interesting point and shows a Microsoft tactic of old, which is when you're getting beat in the marketplace, start releasing all the rumors of what's coming in the future version of Windows. That ain't going to work this time.
No, I mean, it didn't work in Egypt, and it's not going to work. I mean, everything is on Twitter in real time.
Well, I think Apple is now able to do that in the way that Microsoft used to. They can just kill other people's sales by announcing something's coming.
Well, that's true, but
except that they can talk about it, very briefly, but then they happen to roll out the platform, and when, as Jobs said, it's not 6 months from now, it's not a month from now, it's next Friday.
And Windows is a year from now. Windows 8 is not coming out this year. They just cannot physically move that machine and get the channel stuffed before next year sometime.
We should call it Windows Late from now on instead of 8.
That hurts.
Windows too late.
Windows Late.
Did you see Microsoft started a site campaign against IE6? I thought that was rather nice.
Yeah, that's
Explain
great.
that for us.
So IE6 is the nightmare browser that's holding back web development because it doesn't work properly. And Microsoft themselves want people to stop using it and use IE8 or 9. So they've now put up their own website saying friends don't let friends use IE6, which is wonderful.
Yeah. I don't even know what to do. It's really interesting. The last 4 people I've seen running Windows on their laptops that have come to my house and shown me something, they all have Google Chrome running. And that's a bad sign for Microsoft because, sorry, IE9 just is not even close to competitive with Chrome.
So, John, I want you to weave into this the social delta here. I mean, it seems to me that the iPad 2 is a profoundly useful social, generation tool.
I believe so. I mean, you characterized it as being as much about, or not just being a consumption device. And I think that you're starting to see the production capability on it. And all of the different sensors that are on the device, all the different ways that the device can activate and create social and push social gestures into the network. I think that is there's a lot of really interesting stuff which is coming there.
Just to bookmark what Doc said about the plane. I've been on planes all week, and on the trip back this morning, not only were there a whole bunch of iPads, but about half of them were running the Twitter client. You just walk by and you see these people. They're not working with spreadsheets. They're working with Twitter.
Interesting.
Yeah, because
did
they
you
get
have
on the
a
plane,
Wi-Fi connection?
You get up above the clouds, and then you hook into GoGo in flight, and you're back on the grid.
So, Steve, one of the questions I have here, which I was just sitting listening to you guys, and I mean, there's at least 2 companies we've talked about, Microsoft and Comcast, whose business is being completely disrupted, maybe 3 with Google, and I don't think they know it actually. I think there's this really
Not watching Twitter, evidently.
I think that they're just on another channel, and I think these businesses.
Do you really think that Comcast? I think Comcast understands it pretty well. Brian Roberts, has been talking about the Comcast app since I believe it was a year and a half ago at Web 2.0.
Yeah, I think they understand it intellectually, and I think that they're really smart people. They understand their business very well, but they have legacy businesses, legacy pipes. They don't really view end users as their customers in the case of the cable guys. And I think that every product that they seem to push into market, they impute a strategy tax on it that basically nips and tucks it in 3 to 5 different ways that makes it next to unusable. And so I think that there's all the TV Anywhere stuff coming, and I'm fully confident that it will be that it just will not be relevant.
So like Xfinity and that kind of thing fits that definition?
I mean, if you go to the heart of their business model, it's one of the things that sits right in the heart of their business model is the concept of a bundle.
Yeah.
And so, the moment you try to drive a la carte, and you let people pick what they actually want to watch. I mean, I pay, here in New York City, I pay $150 a month, and I really watch very little TV. And, once I can begin to sort of cleave off the pieces, like Al Jazeera, then, I just go a la carte. So even if I'm trying to do the TV Anywhere Xfinity thing, I don't think that they have the wherewithal to break the bundle.
No, I had this yesterday. The AT&T sales guy turned up at the door and said, "We're running fiber near your house. Do you want us to connect you up?" And I said, "Yes. What can you do me without television?" And they were like, "What? No, we can't do that. We can only give you something with television." It's like, okay, give me the smallest television thing and tell me about it. And it's like, well, here's the television package, but you don't get HD. And all the internet things were sort of ridiculously asymmetric. So it's like, you can't sell me what I want here. I want upload speed, and I want a tiny amount of television, and I'll probably replace that with buying stuff soon anyway.
You know, the last barrier that I think that they're trying to protect is the live news broadcast,
Which is not what they have anymore. The live news broadcast is Al Jazeera now and Twitter.
Yeah,
that's
let's
not true. There's still
overstate the Al Jazeera. I mean, Al Jazeera is a premier network because they're allowed into that country.
But there's no live news in the US is a joke. It's useless. It's neither live nor news.
I don't think they're protecting live news, Steve. I think they're protecting the content.
Sport, maybe.
Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can't see you move, but I can hear you.
Kevin sounded like he was trying to talk over me.
He was.
Okay. If you look at all the shows you watch, that I watch, CSI, on and on, those things cost money to develop, and I'm not watching the ads. I fast forward through the ads.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, Robert, that the content window of staging is what they've been traditionally doing. But at this point, when you get on a plane, you really start to see how this is breaking down. The Virgin America, they've got CBS, ESPN, no ABC, no NBC. Yeah. Already these markets are sort of fracturing, and they've got CNN and they've got MSNBC. So I spend most of my time on one of those two channels.
Yep.
Now, when that goes to the iPad through, as John pointed out, through whatever mechanism, be it Xfinity, as Doc suggests, or I'm not saying you suggested it, but you
not. Yeah.
Once that's going to get, it's going to come to a head in a very short period of time, because right now there's virtually nothing that you can't get a reasonable facsimile of on the iPad.
Yeah.
Or put it another way, the iPad is the target platform.
Yeah.
And there will be continuing, as John pointed out, there will continue to be companies that, for whatever reasons, whether they're ignorant or hopelessly trapped in a legacy environment, that they can't do anything about this. There are going to be companies that are going to be demolished by the mainstream companies that figure out first how to be able to get onto the iPad and disrupt this channel. And that leads, of course, to the situation with the studios. I mean, this 2.5 Men thing is an object lesson. Time Warner is getting killed about this because they've lost the revenue. They're getting $4 million an episode, and they're giving 1.2 of it to Charlie Sheen. And CBS announced, Les Moonves announced that they're actually saving money. They're making more money on the reruns. So that'll last for a certain period of time. But who's to say if Conan a year from now had been in the situation that he was with NBC a year ago, he might go to the iPad network rather than go to TBS.
It's interesting because all he has to do to go to the iPad network is make a good app, and that's all that that Al Jazeera did, and they're on something called Live Station, and I would watch Live Station because they're the pioneer in this thing. But back to John's point about how these guys seem to be the dead models walking. The reason that you can't get ESPN or CNN or any of these streaming the same way that that Al Jazeera is because of the death grip partnerships they have all up and down this verticalized marketplace from the studios and these entertainment conglomerates down through the Comcast of the world. And in some ways, by Comcast buying NBC, they made things worse because they made bundling is in a way a kind of cancer that brings everything down together. So you need all these different logs that are strapped together to move at the same time, whereas a single channel like an Al Jazeera that's squeezed out of the old system can leap ahead of everybody else. And so I think what's going to happen is we're going to see, let's say Jimmy Fallon or one of the other, talkers or somebody like this, maybe maybe even Larry King comes back, right? I'm just to pull some names out of the hat. Has their own app, run your own show on the iPad. Run your own show. It doesn't even have to be for the iPad. It could be for any mobile device.
Yeah, the biggest problem the studios have is that their product sucks.
Sure, and that's
Charlie
great.
Sheen
That's great for the rest of us.
is leveraging the fact that that's probably the most popular show. I never watched it, but
I've only seen it on airplanes, and it's a standard silly sitcom with an old premise, and I mean
that's my point is that there is there a market for 5 of those on the iPad? No. There's barely a market for that.
Well, there's not a market for, not at that cost structure. There's no way. But there's a market for all kinds of worthwhile stuff that can't get into the cabal, but can survive a lot better on the outside and probably with a lot.
I'm trying to frame this particular conversation as about the death of Windows. So just follow the logic of it. Yes, we can strategically target, hiding behind the trees, Revolutionary Army, come in with specialty products and do that. But the question is whether or not the large broadcast infrastructure is vulnerable or not. And I think it is.
It's totally vulnerable. It is vulnerable along with Windows for similar reasons. But
except for one thing, they own the last mile, the last 100 yards to my house. And Comcast.
That's true, and that's what Jobs has intermediated through the strategy of bringing down one carrier, and now he's got 2 carriers that he's playing with.
Yeah,
he's got Verizon and AT&T. What is that, about 45-50% of the bandwidth?
Yeah, of the wireless bandwidth.
But you have both Wi-Fi and you have 3G, so it's a workaround.
John, you were going to say something, or were you just grimacing?
I was grimacing, but I had some guys from Verizon Wireless in office last week, and one of them had a 4G phone, and he was 20-year-old who works at Verizon and he had maybe 6 phones on him, and he said I'm canceling my cable bill because of this 4G phone.
Except for the data cap. I was in the Verizon store the other day and had the same conversation, but the guy said, if we really wanted to watch HD video on this thing, we would kill our data cap in an hour or something.
But it's not a data cap, though. There's a tiered pricing structure. There's a difference between that and a cap. There's no cap.
Okay.
I think there's going to be a business like the zip cars.
And when you're over in Europe, do you watch your phone to make sure you don't hit the 200 megabytes?
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a business like zip cars for watching the Super Bowl and the Academy Awards. You basically go down and
they're called bars,
and they drop it off. Yeah, but at home by yourself, right? No, I'm serious. I think that the value proposition of these live event environments, which is what I roll up with news, that is the last stand for these companies. Go ahead, John. We know that Robert disagrees, and he will have his airtime, I promise.
So, Steve, I wanted to take it in a slightly different direction, which is
All right, well, in that case, can you hold the thought? Robert, complain.
I mean, I have a Boxy Box, an Xbox, a PlayStation, a Roku box, and an Apple TV, and a Google TV, all hooked up to my 60-inch glorious...
Yeah, and you have your phone number on the internet. What's the point?
I'm not giving up the glorious HD off my cable. My cable still looks better than today.
I love glorious HD. I watch Mad Men, push it right from the iPad up to the HD. It looks fantastic.
And for me, watching Criminal Minds, until the last shows that I like watching, and the glorious HDness of them. I mean, American Idol on HD just looks so good. You can't get that yet on even an Apple TV.
I don't disagree with you, but I think that we're at an inflection point right now.
So, John, you wanted to take if that's what you're holding on to, I mean, if you're Comcast,
Doc, go ahead, Doc.
I was saying, I mean, if American Idol and and HD on ordinary shows that millions watch, but that's about it, is your only or your main way for holding on to customers, you're not going to hold on to them that long. I mean, I think that
I think that
it's a death march right now.
American Idol is a news event, and
Sure.
they will
Yeah.
hold the audience significantly. The question is when do they start to bundle it in a form that you can also get on your iPad? Because the
The
second
question
that
is
happens,
how soon do they quit? When do they start unbundling it so you can get it on your iPad? And
all
they'll
right,
get,
we're saying the same thing,
Yeah.
kind of in reverse. Okay, John, did you want to go on your tangent?
Sure. So what I want to talk about for a second was that one of the things that we see is these very rapid nonlinear adoptions of these new platforms, right? And all of these new events. So whether it's Al Jazeera or whether it's Charlie Sheen in the last 72 hours or even 48 hours picking up 1.5 million Twitter users, it's the density of the connections, the real-time connections, and the speed at which these shifts are taking place, and the choppiness, right? This very sort of it's both it's very much event-based, and it's happening in a very choppy, non-linear fashion. And my hunch is it's changing the way everything that we should do, from all the way from product development to content development to actual social engagement. Does that make any sense? I mean, I don't want to. I'm being careful because I don't want to plug. I'm always on the show, Steve. I'm always respectful not to plug our products. But
Well, I'm just scared to talk about them because I don't know what part of what you showed me yesterday is meant to be public. So go ahead. You're the one that knows.
So one of the things that I showed Steve yesterday is we have a product which is a real-time monitoring platform called Chartbeat. And we have most of the major publishers, most of the major websites for broadcasters, including narrowcasters or channels like Al Jazeera, who are on it now. So I could flip over to Chartbeat right
Would
now
you
and
call
see.
TechCrunch a narrowcast?
Um,
Because you showed
yeah.
me TechCrunch. It was some very interesting
Yes.
data there.
Yes. But so right now I can flip over to Chartbeat and there's 17,400 people on Al Jazeera. And if I look at the last 30 days, it's incredibly bumpy because as events happen, there are these flocks of people who run to Al Jazeera. And yet every time there is this pileup that takes place, there's a group of people who learn what Doc outlined in his blog post. They suddenly realize I can do over the top. And I don't, all the stuff about HD, I love HD sometimes, but I think that the mobility and the fragmentation of the network trumps HD. And I think that the studios and a lot of the content guys are assuming that HD is going to be one of the things, even 3D, that's going to keep people stuck in front of their existing closed pipe. And yet what's happening is the adoption's happening, and it's happening in this very sort of fragmented, spurty fashion, which I think is fascinating. And like I said, it goes all the way down to product development, because I think you can learn, when one of these pileups take place, you can actually learn an awful amount about about the workflow and how people are actually using your product in an incredibly intense and condensed amount of time. Does this stuff make any sense?
Yeah, I think Robert, give me a second here. I think that's what I was so overwhelmed by at the iPad 2 launch, was seeing how they took these two products, iMovie and especially GarageBand, and they basically just said, okay, this is a new thing. We are dealing with something that we are discovering. And as a result, they came out with this combination of art, as Jobs said at the end. It was brilliant the way that he, after showing all this, he then becomes almost philosophical to state that the reason that they are so difficult to dislodge from this moment is because they are on the cusp of technology and art.
Yeah.
That's a profoundly disruptive change. You know, never have I mean, I think Bill Gates is one of the most incredible people of this or any century. But Microsoft, because they grew so big, they didn't have the ability to be able to drop back and call an audible at the line of scrimmage like Jobs has done. Maybe it's because he was thrown out of the company that he created, but you know, in some ways, Jobs has recreated Apple in a profoundly more disruptive way than he did the first time.
Did you notice that when they were playing the video of the case, that at the end of it he said, "Doesn't that look like a Pixar short?" Something like that.
Yeah, and it did.
It did,
and it's
I
not
think
an
you're
accident.
right on. I think you're right on because it was Jobs' joining of Pixar, the movie industry, the art industry, the creative industry, the humanity industry, with Apple, the geeky side, the engineering, the A5 chip, the specs. You merge those together and you get what Apple
And
is today.
there's another antecedent for this, or precedent for this, which is Dave Weiner. The way that Dave Weiner bootstrapped various things to get to the next stage, and then he got the New York Times involved, and you know, with RSS, et cetera, et cetera. That kind of methodology. I mean, Jobs was on the ropes when he went to Pixar. He'd failed with Next. He went to Pixar. He just basically, you know, retreated and found his center. And then as that built out, I mean, he now is the largest single shareholder of ABC and Disney because he sold them Pixar.
By the way, Microsoft does have one group that is aligned with this new way of thinking, and it's the Xbox team. I still think Xbox is a product that is competing in my head with the iPad for this kind of stuff. It's not the same product, but
yeah, but
the,
you know,
the
the way
Kinect
that,
is very
the way they handled
aspirational.
the way they handled Ray Ozzie doesn't bode well for anything coming out of Microsoft at this point. I mean, I'm a huge
I agree,
Microsoft.
but the Xbox team was separate from that, right? And if there's a little pilot light on still inside Microsoft that could turn into a fire, it is the Xbox team.
Well, that's a good image. Rob.
That's
But I
a
mean,
little
I
tiny
think
turtle flame.
right. Do I hear taps? I don't think so.
Personally, I would put the Xbox brand and make it and expand it into everything they do.
This is kind of the reverse of, you know, break up Microsoft. Now you're suggesting that, you know, break up Xbox. The Android.
No, take the Xbox and put that aspirational, because they have the aspirational.
They did that with
down.
Android. Google is more successful at this sort of second generation Microsoft approach.
Yeah.
I think Microsoft comes in last in competition with Google for recreating what they do. I think they're toast.
I don't think they're toast until they blow out that pilot light over at the Xbox team. And I love the Kinect. I think the
I do
Kinect
too.
and
I'm not
iPad are
arguing
the
with
two-
you.
Well, they're the two revolutionary products of our time, and of this time. And
But that was the thing. So how much of this?
But there's a
you
difference
were at
between-
GDC this week, weren't you, Robert? How much of this of the stuff was Xbox versus mobile stuff? Because I saw the Nintendo guys were looking very nervous. But is it sort of split into those two now?
I think so. I mean, I look at all the games on
No,
the
I think you're talking
iOS.
about the difference between a disruptive tool or platform and this juggernaut that Jobs has assembled, which is, you know, where's the iTunes? Where's, you know, what are they going to do with MobileMe? I mean, it seems very clear that MobileMe, now that they've got 200 million credit cards, they're gonna actually give us some stuff.
But
Just in the same
even
way
on that point, what other company has credit cards? It's the Xbox team. The Xbox team has my credit card. I buy a lot of games and a lot of points on Xbox. And
you buy it through the credit card?
Absolutely, absolutely. They have a games distribution and music and video. They have a big deal over on Xbox. And they sold 8 million Kinects. So they're selling 8 million in 3 months, right? It's the fastest selling consumer electronics product in history, faster than the iPad.
They may have the gestures locked up. The basically controllerless. To me, that's the IP of Kinect.
Well, I think it's a war for I think what we're talking about the whole show is war over our TV. Who gets to be the guy who delivers stuff to my 60-inch screen? And the Xbox is a huge winner right now. I mean, I use my Apple TV, but the Xbox is on a lot more than my Apple TV is.
Well, I don't see the immediate connection to the enterprise that I do with the iPad, and I think that's
true.
And that's extremely damaging to Microsoft.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kevin,
true.
you were going to say something?
I was going to say my boys are playing Minecraft. We've unplugged the Xbox and plugged the Apple TV in instead. And they're playing Minecraft on laptops rather than playing Xbox stuff.
I mean, the announcements at around AirPlay were really quite interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, who needs a PowerPoint anymore?
Not only that, but every time I show my grandma, a video now, I'm going to be pulling out the iPad, clicking on a button, and then pushing it to my big screen so she can watch it. Pictures, the same thing. I've already set that up where I just show pictures from my iPad or from my computer upstairs to my Apple TV. That's why yesterday I wrote a post and I said the Apple TV to my family is hugely important to the iPad. If you don't have the other Apple devices in your house, it's hard to see that. But once you get them, it's like, wow, I can change things from my iPad or my iPhone that control my big 60-inch screen in front of me, or drag stuff off of a laptop or a computer somewhere else in the house. Now, Microsoft has tried to show this for years with the Media Center. It's not as nicely done, and it's certainly not as nicely done where I hold it in my hand.
That little symbol that means you click on that and it goes up to the menu. One of the things that they said in the marketing literature for AirPlay is they talked about AirPlay-enabled applications.
Yeah.
Now, that's the new platform. They're going to backport the Mac to run those apps, not the other way around. I mean, we're at the end of OS X. Yes, John?
I would say also AirPlay-enabled hardware, right? All these black screens that we all live with in our homes and as we walk around airports and the like. Airports, the real places, not the device. And, all these devices, as they become AirPlay enabled, it gives Apple an opportunity to assume to assume control of those devices.
Yeah, and the other sort of linchpin of this is push notification. Push notification is going to become we've talked about this before on the show. It's going to become a routable entity that people are going to write to. They're going to write to that central point where how your social network determines what the priority is of which push notification you accept first. That's going to be, that's where the intersection of Office and the enterprise is going to start to become hugely contested. And I don't think that anybody's got. I think Android has some leverage in that equation, but not a lot. Go ahead.
One piece of leverage that Google still has, and I don't think is going away anytime soon, is the traffic leverage. I'm watching how Quora, for instance, gets traffic. It's showing up all over the place on Google searches, and it's still getting a lot of traffic from that place. I've been talking to lots of entrepreneurs where they get their traffic, and yeah, you get the bump from being on TechCrunch or being on TechMeme, but most of your traffic comes from the Google world, and you got to figure out how to push that, how to get that. I still think Google has a big stick to play. They might not have a Facebook competitor, but they are the one that will bless certain social systems like Quora with traffic.
All right, let's go around the table and try and sum this up. Let's start with you, Doc.
Steve, before you go around the table, one thing that's not on the iPad, I'd love to hear John's thoughts on the new Twitter app. I really, really hate the new advertising black bar in the Twitter app because it interrupts what we're trying to do with the news feeds. I'd love to
explain that again.
All right. So the new Twitter app.
About?
The new Twitter. Let me see if I can demo it. The new Twitter app. Hold on.
It puts an annoying thing at the top.
Let me get it up here. Hold on. Sorry, I wasn't ready for the demo. Come on. Okay, let's see if I can pull up a black bar.
It's like a little advertising thing at the top of the screen, right?
Yeah, I'll show it to you if it.
Except it goes over the thing you're reading.
Mine doesn't have it.
Yeah, it's okay. See the black bar right here?
McLobster.
Yeah, it's showing you trending topics most of the time. It's not even an ad, and the trending topics are so incredibly lame. It's like Twitter. Why are you putting trending topics?
It's like those RSS feeds that are at the top.
Well, some of them are ads, right? 1 in 5.
Some of them are ads, right? Some of them are promoted tweets.
So
let me see if I can get a promoted tweet to come up.
Well, what's your concern?
Well, those are ads.
It takes away a good chunk of my reading space from me, and it is so totally a horrid UI. It is the worst thing I've seen Twitter do, anti-user in years, and it doesn't add any. It doesn't add any value to it. Blade Runner? Why the fuck do I care about Blade Runner? Give me a break. Get it out of my face. At least show me an ad that you're getting paid for. Come on.
What makes you think they're not getting paid for it?
Because these are trending topics. They're not getting paid for the trending topics. They are getting paid when they get a promoted tweet.
That's their only revenue is from paid trending topics.
No. When it's paid, it says promoted on it. And like Friday is one of the trending topics. Why do I care about that? Show me something interesting. Show me Al Jazeera.
You're complaining about the... But going back to the Al Jazeera moment, isn't Al Jazeera the exact opposite of what you're showing us? Isn't it? It's free because it's not tied into a pre-existing lock-in strategy.
Yeah. What I think they're going to do is in a week they're going to turn on a ad list version of the Twitter client that'll cost me $20. And guess what? I would gladly pay for it because this bar is costing me $20 a time.
John, you were saying?
I was saying that I think that I'm glad Robert brought up the monetization stuff here because I think a lot of it is we're operating in this space where there's a lot of things that are getting to scale in advance of real monetization. And to point to Al Jazeera specifically, I mean, they're supported by the government of Qatar, right? And so that's their business model. And so, trying to figure out how you can, particularly real time, how you can actually monetize through advertising or quasi-advertising things. I mean, the ads on Facebook, I find them a complete distraction. I think that they're useless. Yeah. And it's remarkable how much data Facebook has on all of us, and yet they still don't seem able to target those real time. And maybe I need teeth whitening, but I never thought I did, and everybody else seems to get the teeth whitening.
This isn't really. I don't think this is an advertising versus no advertising discussion. I think that what Twitter's doing is they're commandeering this news event cycle, and they're bringing it into their under their if we always look to Twitter first for news, then I'm in a meeting for an hour. I don't know what's going on. If I glance down there and I see some trending topic that's going, Libya. What's Tiger Blood? I don't know. Oh, that's
Exactly.
Charlie Sheen.
Movies, Team Sheen.
Charlie Sheen.
Exactly. Why do I care about Charlie Sheen? I mean, really.
But you're not looking at it from a macro perspective. From a macro perspective, it's comforting to know that nothing has changed since an hour ago.
Yeah.
That's a very quick signal to tell you that, all is well or horrible in the world, depending on your perspective.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they own CNN, gone. Who owns this real-time moment?
Yeah.
Is what we're talking about, and I think that's pretty clever.
I think it's clever because
you're marketing it, of course. Scoble hates it, goes around the world.
Yeah.
Everybody now knows that you hate this.
I hate it. I hate it
Scoble.
because I know the value of that black bar, and it's in my way, and they could do so much better with it. It's like John said. It's a lame Facebook ad. It doesn't do anything for me. I mean, okay.
It's almost as though you should be getting paid to complain about this.
So are any ads not lame? Are any ads not lame?
So these trends are supposed to be local trends. I think that's what's going on.
No, they're the most topic trending topics.
They're not.
They're not even local trends. If it was,
oh look,
if it was what was happening on Sand Hill Road, it might actually be interesting.
But what were you showing? There's a
setting that says ignore local trends, which sets them to global. Should I just switch?
Let's see if we can find that for you.
Defaults to.
There it is.
Defaults to off, which means that.
Don't ignore local trends is what the default is.
Yes, which means that it shows you local stuff in theory.
Uh-huh.
Where did you find that setting? Accounts.
Yeah, it is.
We've
sure,
already
it's
seen
buried.
this, Robert.
So now I'm getting the global trends. I'm getting black people movies.
You're way behind, Robert.
All right. I'll figure it out later.
You go.
Never mind.
Username. Yeah, it's hidden.
Well, I can tell that nobody really wants to stop the show, but I am going to bring it to a halt.
My battery's running out. I got 11 minutes of battery left.
Okay, so Doc, you want to?
Is Robert? Are you talking about your personal battery, or you're talking about your device?
My MacBook Pro battery, because I'm not plugged into the power grid.
Yeah, it's that 6-hour battery that lasts in 45 minutes.
It lasts 3 hours.
Yeah, you're lucky.
When at the hotel last night, they charge you $16.95 for Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Right. On the plane, they charge you $12.95 for Wi-Fi. So, and it's per device.
Yeah.
You can trick go in flight, but you can't trick the. Okay.
Why do you think? Why do you think I have two iPhones, one on AT&T and one on Verizon, so I can try to kill one or two of those fees?
It's all going to the iPad. The iPad wins. It's got 10 hours of battery. Winning. Still. Right, winning. Tiger Blood.
Winning.
All right, Doc.
Thank you, Sheen.
Summarize, please.
Yeah. I think one of the things I got out of the show today is, and I got it from John, is that couch potato farming is a dying business, and even if you have a giant screen, you're going to start the normative center of our lives is going to be mobile devices. It's going to be our iPads and phones and Android pads and other things like that, and not the big screen. The big screen is a fixed thing. We're mobile. Our mobile devices are going to be the center of our lives, and whoever wins at that wins at the other stuff. And in the meantime, everybody who's attached to the old bundled up couch potato farming business is doomed. So, and I think the desk potato farming business also in the enterprise, which is the business that Microsoft was in, is also doomed. And that's another takeaway from your earlier remarks, Dave.
Okay, well, let's throw it to John, and then we'll come back, and we won't forget Kevin ever again. So, John.
So I'm losing my voice again. So I don't have a lot more to add. I think that I think these shifts are happening really fast, and most people don't. Like, it's very hard for us even in the center of this, or because we're so involved in it, it's hard for us to see the shifts taking place. But I think that this time next year we're going to see a host of new companies, new services that will spring out of this. I hate to use the word singularity, but I used it yesterday when we were talking, and I think that when the number of connections becomes sufficiently dense, these events that are taking place, these sort of live swarmed events that are taking place, are giving rise to whole new forms of applications, services, media, if you want to call it that. And I think that we're at the threshold of seeing a lot of new things come online and on the network. And so, other than the fact that other than the fact I can't speak, I'm hugely excited.
Okay, Kevin.
No, I think that's right. I think there's a whole bunch of these different transitions going on at once, and most of them are actually plugging together in useful, interesting ways, and that's the encouraging part of this, definitely.
Robert?
It's all about apps, baby, and that's why I'm getting an iPad next Friday.
Are you going to stand on the line?
No, I'm going to be flying, so I'm going to have somebody pick me up one. Can you pick me up one?
If I'm standing on line, sure.
All right.
Although I think I've got to get Toshak one too. So I'll see what I can do.
Well, actually, I need somebody at South by Southwest to pick one up for me.
Oh, are you going to South by Southwest?
Yeah, I'm flying. That's why I'm flying at 5 o'clock, which is when they go on sale on Friday afternoon. So
be careful. Stay off the sauce.
we're taking the Zappos bus on Sunday to Lockhart, Texas, to Smitty's Market. If you want to meet us there, we'll be there around 12:30.
All right. So I've enjoyed the show. I love the intersection of these different perspectives. It really adds up to something that, like what was going on at that launch, and like some of the things that I saw at BetaWorks with John yesterday. There's just something about this that is hard to pin down, but it's really exciting. I want to thank Rackspace, and particularly Rob Legess, for turning this into a video show. Getting us back on the network, and TriCaster and NewTek for turning it into video. I want to thank our producer and director, Tina Chase Gillmor. I want to thank Kevin Marks, John Borthwick, Kevin Marks, John Borthwick, Robert Scoble, and the notorious Doc Searls. I want to thank everybody who showed up, and especially those who didn't. I'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys. My batteries are dead, so I'm